I've been a Chance the Rapper fan since 2011, and I've been downloading mixtapes since 2007. And Chance the Rapper, easily one of my favorite artists, effectively killed the mixtape. And you may say, that's dramatic, or how did he do that? Let me explain.
Made me anxious, and that shit made me crazy. Squares just made me looser, that wax just made me lazy. And I still made this song, and I'ma make another if you ever actually hit me.
Now, Chancellor Bennett, or Chance the Rapper, is an artist, writer, producer, amongst many other things from the south side of Chicago, who started making music at a very young age. Now, in high school, Chance was part of a collective with his longtime friend Vic Mensa called Save Money. This included artists like Jamila Woods, No Name, and they were collaborating with Mick Jenkins and Peter Cottontail. And this is just to name a few.
Video with this song that I just made called Prom Night, and it's gonna be on this tape that I'm dropping way later called 10 Days. It's not gonna come out for a long time, but just remember that I did this. Charlie Bartlett, John Bender, Class Switcher, Time Bender, Chance Bennett, a peculiar name. Graduation night, teachers Ferris Bueller my name. You made a mixtape?
Now this is where I want to start. This mixtape 10 Day included tracks like Hey Ma and Prom Night and production from Peter Cottontail, which if you know any Chance the Rapper music, you should know Peter Cottontail. Now this mixtape wasn't like a regular mixtape in the city. Chance had a different type of hype here. He had early listening parties at stores like Leaders in Chicago, and there were people lined up around the block just to get an early listen of 10 Day. This was a once-in-a-lifetime lightning in a bottle situation. Chance linked with Pat Corcoran, his at-the-time manager, and they began marketing this music in every way they could. There was a time where you couldn't go from your high school without seeing a poster of Chance to your car without hearing a song to going on Facebook and seeing a post about a show. This was just the plan that was going to take Chance through the moon, and it obviously worked because it led to them getting a South by Southwest performance.
Chance, myself, and Mr. Bennett all got to work on campaigning this 10-day show. It was every day postering schools. Mr. Bennett was driving us around. He was super involved, and we sold out the show.
Now, Pat and Chance went to New York off the hype of South by Southwest, and they met with Sylvia Rhone, who offered them a record deal, but they didn't take this deal. They shopped Chance around at different record labels to see what they would offer, and they also wanted them to wait because Chance just got a beat pack from Nate Fox, and that beat pack would make acid rap. Now, they told all the labels that they wanted them to wait to hear this new project so that they could, get acid rap out there, as a Chance offering before this came out. But they had to keep pushing the date back to finish the project, as well as so they could finish up some tour dates with Childish Gambino. Now, we're gonna have to briefly derail here so that we can take a minute to talk about the mixtape. Now I know what you're thinking, how are we gonna do that? And I'm gonna explain it to you with J-Treb's Guide to Mixtapes, pre-2013. Now this is a criteria that I put together myself, so in no way is this the definition of how a mixtape should be, or even what a mixtape should be. I think that any artist has the right to, make something new with their art, or make something new inside a category that already exists. But we're here to make a criteria, and I have 3 important things that I think make a checklist for what is a mixtape. According to Victrola.com, a mixtape is a compilation of songs, typically from a hip-hop artist, where they rap on beats that may or may not be their own. Now, also on their website, they say that a mixtape should be free, it should be easy to distribute, and it should be leading you to an artist to become a new fan or to, allude to a new project. This varies in production from a regular album because a regular album is typically made with the goal of monetization. So this is converting the fans that you already have over to dollars so that you can profit from that. Now keep that in mind. The original mixtape was actually a physical tape. This was a tape that people would pass back and forth where they would have either their own raps on them or they would record over the radio. And they didn't really get popular in the selling scene until club DJs or radio DJs would start selling their sets as just club tapes, or mixtapes. This easily led itself over to the CD era, where people could burn and create disc at their own homes. So they would grab tracks or instrumentals from songs that were already popular and then add their own verses. Artists like 50 Cent would actually come up like this, where some of the clubs would play 50 Cent's versions more than they would play the real versions, and they got them for mixtapes. Now, these tapes weren't sold at a profit, but not many artists cared because of the buzz that they would generate because of it. Now, artists not caring about that profit is exactly what helped everything when it came to online music streaming. With sites like Napster that were already proven to give out music that is copyrighted for free, they realized we could just drop our mixtapes here that we can't sell anyway for free. And that's exactly what they did. You didn't just have to be in their city to get their mixtapes. Artists like Lil Wayne would hold his fans over with a series of mixtapes. He had the Drought series and the Sorry for the Wait series, all available for his fans the second he was done with them, because he could release them online on sites like DatPiff. Now, with that little bit of history, I think you'll be able to see how I came up with this criteria. The first criteria of a mixtape is that it's not available for commercial purchase. There should be no barrier of entry to get this music. The online era lent itself to mixtapes being free, and that's easily a reason for that to be the first in this criteria. The second criteria here is that the mixtape should be widely available to not only your pre-existing fans, but also potential fans. The mixtape is supposed to be something that you use to get new people into your music. This harkens back to the days of people selling tapes out of their trunks, or DJs giving their mixtapes to people who just saw them that night spinning at clubs. This is something that you see with artists like Currency and Lil Wayne. They used the mixtape to make sure they could cover all of their bases. They knew that when they did their studio release, the pre-existing fans would be there, but they also knew that if they gave back-to-back mixtapes on DatPiff, there was potential for new fans every single day. This third criteria I came up with talking with other artists and friends that I have who love music, and I asked them what they love most about their favorite mixtapes. They said that their favorite part of mixtapes was that it was like a sampler from an artist. The artist got to try things that they normally wouldn't do on a studio release. Things that maybe the label wouldn't okay or might not go over well when you're dealing with a large major drop. Those things are allowed when you do a mixtape. You can try new beats, you can try new flows, you can rap over other people's beats. That's what they loved about their favorite mixtapes every time they talked about them. And that's why I thought it was a good third criteria. Now that we've got all our criteria of a mixtape, let's get back to Chance. Now, Chance and his team were putting on those final touches to acid rap, with Peter, Nate, and Nico working on those last final elements of the project. They were ready for release, and they decided to drop the single Juice. They released Juice as a paid single, and you may be saying, J-Treb, why'd you go through all that mixtape stuff if you were just gonna tell me that he put out a paid single, which would not make it a mixtape? And you'd be right. Chance's lawyers told them that they immediately had to take this song out because it had a sample inside of it. This song could no longer be for purchase, and that ultimately led them to continue on the mixtape route with the entire project. And now we're finally here, April 30th, 2013. Chance used the now defunct site DatPiff to release this project, and this was the perfect place for it. DatPiff was the place for mixtapes in the 2000s to 2010 era. This is where Currency, Wiz Khalifa, Mac Miller, any mixtape that even though it never dropped on DSPs, it was probably dropped on DatPiff. At the time of the site's closing, Chance's acid rap was number 11 in their Diamond mixtapes. That's over 1 million downloads. And this is during the era before streaming services. So if you downloaded from DatPiff, you'd have to download it, put it into your iTunes or Spotify, and then it would be available on your device, such as your phone or your iPod. This way was about to be the way of the past. We don't do that anymore, and even thinking of a Gen Z kid plugging in a 30-pin connector is kind of wild to me. And Chance, they took the initiative. Chance went ahead and dropped this on a streaming service called SoundCloud as well. Now, SoundCloud may be commonplace in today's vernacular when we're talking about rap and where rappers put their music, but it wasn't as popular back in 2013. They were actually rising to popularity. In between 2012 and 2015, SoundCloud went from 15 million users to over 150 million users. This made this the perfect location for Chance to drop a mixtape to reach the most new fans. Though it may sound commonplace now to drop your mixtape in multiple places, that wasn't the case then. Chance effectively was doing something that only few artists were doing. Some were dropping it on just DatPiff still in the traditional manner, some were dropping just on SoundCloud. Chance bridged the gap and made this available not only for his old fans who might have been, on DatPiff because of 10 Day, but he also made this available for new fans who were downloading apps like me. I may have been a Chance fan before this time period, as you can tell by this video, but Chance fans mostly come from this era. Heard good ass intro on these projects. They saw the mixtape being available on SoundCloud, and that's how they got in. This is how Chance not only made a mixtape that would change his life forever, but he changed the way we drop music. Welcome back to the green screen, and I hate to break it to you, but Chance is probably the last artist that's gonna blow up that way. I gotta dive into that one for you. This project was on the edge of downloading and streaming, similar to how CDs and cassettes were at one time. Or to make a better comparison that's not exactly one-to-one, think Netflix and DVDs. Now, as I said, they're not one-to-one, but if you think about which one is easier for the listener and which one's gonna give you more attention, streaming is obviously the answer. Now, DatPiff required downloading, and they did eventually get into streaming later in the game, but that's not how the generations were going. Instead of there being LimeWire and iTunes, there's now app stores and SoundCloud. This is just so obvious for how the trajectory of streaming was going and how the trajectory of mixtapes was gonna go. So Chance hopped in early, but this was the last one. Now we do have to talk about how this mixtape blew up though. Does it meet our criteria? Checks box 1 easily. This was not available for commercial purchase, and actually even though they tried, they weren't even allowed to. So box 1, automatically check. Box 2 receives a check because of the use of DatPiff as well as new streaming services like SoundCloud. It makes it very obvious when you look at it this way because the old fans from 10 Day were probably on DatPiff, but the newer fans who came into the game were using the SoundCloud app. And I think that this is the definition of our box 3. This is a unique sampler of everything Chance could have possibly offered to us. He gives us every genre he can do and talks about every subject matter under the sun, all under the guise of this acid rap tape. He took so many chances that he did truly create acid rap here. Okay, let's wrap this video up. Chance and other artists in this 2013-2014 time period gave a legitimacy to SoundCloud that DatPiff had already. DatPiff had it on lock. They were the authority for mixtapes online, but that slowly slipped away from them with artists like Chance, artists like Lil Yachty. I can name you so many artists that got famous from the platform of SoundCloud that it almost overshadowed completely what DatPiff did for the industry. The mixtape was a staple in the industry in helping further artists' careers, and it actually is just now starting to fade away completely. Now, Chance might have had the push with SoundCloud, but the next push that would come in 2015 and 16 would be the mixtapes going onto the DSPs. Mixtapes going to services like Apple Music and Spotify would ultimately lead to us no longer really seeing mixtapes in their true form. That adds limitations to the mixtape that I feel it was never supposed to have. You can't rap over your favorite beat from your favorite artist if you have to drop it on a digital service provider. You also don't get to be as experimental when every offering is going to be immediately under your name every time they look it up. So these things are adding limitations to the artists that I see, and it's really taking away what I consider to be the best time period of mixtapes, or when mixtapes were at their truest. Today, if you want to find songs that are similar to the mixtapes of the 2000s and even into the 2010s, you'd have to look at social media. Artists drop songs that are more experimental, or songs where they rap on other people's already used beats on sites like TikTok or Twitter or even Instagram. You'll never really see them hitting the digital service providers in the same way, or you'll never see them hitting SoundCloud in the way that they did during SoundCloud's heyday. But with all of these things happening, that's really the only place that you're gonna get that true mixtape feel. I'd argue that it still does have some of the mixtape qualities. People can still find their favorite new artists this way. It does offer a sampler, but it really relegates everything to social media instead of giving your fans something that they can take, hold, and possess for themselves. When you have a song on SoundCloud, you can add it to your library, and adding it to your library gives you a sense of ownership rather than a tweet that you can like or favorite. And I just think those things do take away some of the true mixtape feel that I loved so much growing up. With all that being said though, we have to thank Chance for what he did. He was on the forefront of this digital era, this digital to streaming. Like, he really played a part. He really planted a flag in how we would drop music for years to come. This is how numerous artists would get famous, was using this same blueprint that he laid down here for us. With 10 years of acid rap, all I can say is thank you. Because even though I don't rap, it inspired me. The way that they moved, the way that they worked, the way that they made sure to get this art from Chicago to the world was inspiring on all fronts, and I can't wait to see who does it next from the city. Thank you all so much for watching and tuning in. I'm going to be bringing more videos like this to the channel, and actually the podcast are going to be in other places. So hey, if you're on here and you watch some of the shows that we have on this channel, the Better Than Cable podcast or the Miseducation of Music podcast, you now are going to be able to find those on the Better Than Cable channel. That's going to be linked down in the description below, so you can go find it there. And also, if you're new here, subscribe to my channel. I have awesome sample breakdowns as well as those cool podcasts that I just mentioned to you that happen over here all the time weekly. You can tune in and you can be a part of all this cool stuff that I'm making. All you have to do is hit the subscribe button down below and hit the bell, hit the like button, do all the things.